Inception. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to John Dudley Speaks. I'm your host, Teddy Perkins Jumpscare. The chameleon-like nature of rapper, singer, producer, writer, actor, director, comedian Donald Glover is something that needs to be studied. Getting his start as a staff writer on Tina Fey and Robert Carlock's 30 Rock after a stint with NYU comedy group Derek Comedy, Glover graduated to a main cast role on NBC's Community, gaining acclaim for his widely beloved portrayal of Troy Barnes. But as his assorted interests came to a head, including stand-up comedy and music, he found himself signed to Glassnote in 2011 under the moniker of Childish Gambino, releasing his solid debut album Camp the same year after a run of mixtapes and EPs. 2013 was a big year for Gambino as he released his critically acclaimed concept record Because the Internet, and from here it was very clear that this was only the beginning of something very special. Through the mid to late 2010s, Glover continued to write and direct for the Emmy-winning Atlanta on FX, while also crafting a bombastic neo-soul psych-funk record with Awaken My Love, and his domination continued with the 2018 single This Is America, which has often been referred to as one of the best songs of the last decade due to its heady themes and forward-thinking production. Not to mention, its Hiro Murai directed video is the stuff of legend at this point. Right before the COVID-19 pandemic began, Glover released 3/15/20 under the Gambino name, and though not his best work, he did eventually return to the project and delivered its punched-up version with Ada Vista a couple months ago. This return coincided with an Emmy-nominated run on Mr. and Mrs. Smith, as well as the announcement that he would be going on a world tour and would be releasing a new film that he directed himself with guess who on the soundtrack, Childish Gambino. That's right, Bando Stone in the New World, the companion piece to the movie, is the final installment in the Childish Gambino canon. But is it worth the hype, the wait, the fanfare? Absolutely, because this is one of the greatest, most chill-inducing, most sonically kaleidoscopic swan songs I've ever listened to. I don't even know where to begin here. There's just so much to unpack in this production from Donald and his various collaborators. I'll start with this. This is a movie soundtrack studio album that actually sounds like a cinematic event. It's got a through line with a focus amid its clear, purposeful bombast, because every single track here has an epic quality to it that makes it feel larger than life. Think about hitting the beach in the middle of an apocalypse, and that's this album's sonic aesthetic. Given the fact that this is a grand finale to the Gambino moniker, it's only right that Donald takes a time machine back into all of the sonics he's experimented with since 2011. Hearts Were Meant to Fly kicks off the record with an industrial flair akin to Yeezus, the wobbling synthetic bass lines and distorted vocals instantly transporting us into a new world. But right away we switch to uplifting emo rock mixed with the scope of Pink Floyd on Lithonia, which is a masterful, sweeping composition in its own right, and one of the best songs of the year. Survive leans into the 3/15/20 style electro R&B, the trickling keys mixing in expertly with the driving, pulsing beat. Yet here's where things get a little bit more eclectic and varied from a stylistic perspective, because Steps Beach goes full kawaii and gives us a vibey acoustic cut, and Donald switches it up right after with what will undoubtedly be one of the most controversial tracks here, Talk My Shit, which almost feels like a parody of a 21 Savage and Drake song, and it kind of works. The industrial leanings of Got to Be head into the ex-military Death Grips direction, while the yeet effect on Cruisin' is in full force in the best way. The Afrobeats inspired In the Night and No Excuses are intoxicating. The reggae-infused Happy Survival and the beachy atmosphere of Can You Feel Me are serene. And the 2010s throwback rap of Yoshinoya is euphoric and tantalizing. But where I found myself truly surprised the most was where Gambino hasn't dabbled before, and that's the pop rock of Real Love and Running Around, indulging in the modern pop punk wave in a way that only he can, that I feel like was such a tasteful reimagining of this sound, much like his reimagining of many of the genres across this project. Obviously, with a soundtrack adjacent record, you're missing a piece of the vision without the visual medium at play. But even so, Bando Stone in the New World, the soundtrack peppers in dialogue from Donald's new film, which isn't anything new, but from an atmospheric perspective, the world building comes off as totally immersive and cinematic. By going into it with that chunk of context regarding a failed superstar in the midst of an apocalypse, it's really simple to slide into Donald's headspace and to understand where he's coming from in this POV. The themes of learning who you really are when the world's turned upside down can be construed as basic, but it's what Donald does to elevate these ideas that makes it special. Lithonia plays with these central elements quite nicely, with the nobody gives a fuck refrain hitting home in an emotional sense. The sweetness of Real Love and Can You Feel Me rings with a nuanced take on sappy, love-based dynamics that any other artist would pull off with less legitimacy. And I loved the funny, quirked up, goofy bars on this thing, like on Talk My Shit and Yoshinoya, leaning heavily into the false bravado that lends Donald's character from the film a liveliness and personality. Step's speech and No Excuses are masterclasses in arrangement, Donald's declarative statements connecting in a mystical yet grounded fashion. Overall, it's a soundtrack that feels like it's a soundtrack, delivering on its promise of high-minded ideas without ditching its through line of destiny and purpose. Since he's vacillating between different modes of his career, this could have unwound into something very unnatural and very uncomfortable very quickly, but Donald sounds absolutely amorphous and versatile across this entire project. The abrasive vocal stylings of Hearts Were Meant to Fly and Got to Be easily fit into the apocalyptic house aesthetic, but his almost youthful energy is chaotic and confrontational. Meanwhile, he can carry that same energy over to Lithonia, Real Love, and Running Around. Just the difference is that he laces it with a vulnerability that we've come to adore from him. The soulful inflections on Survive and the soaring highs he hits on We Are God and the amazing closer A Place Where Love Goes just point to the expertise he's perfected in his vocal presence. But when he switches to a soft, folk-like delivery on Step's Beach and Can You Feel Me, and a restrained pop R&B approach on In the Night, it allows his intense, hungry flows on Cruisin' and Yoshinoya to smack all that much harder, showing that Gambino hasn't lost his edge amid all of his alternative detours on this project. In the end, it's the eclectic nature of this record that allows him to demonstrate his many talents across this entire thing. So without that being nurtured by Donald himself, we don't get excellent performances like this that connect as much as they do. I didn't expect to love every single song here, but I love every single song here. There's so much to pull from this record on multiple listens, with each listen rewarding us with tones and sounds and effects that we didn't get the first time. And it all works to inform the vision that Donald had for this project, so none of it feels purposeless. Clocking in at an hour, the vibe shifts drastically from track to track, and usually I'd say that there was a lack of focus, but that variety and complexity seems to be the point, which in turn makes the album unpredictable and exciting. Because of that, by the time you reach the grandiose closing of A Place Where Love Goes, it really feels like the culmination of an epic journey.
It's clear that your ever loving is coming from the heart. I never had anyone else to call on. It's clear that you're ever loving, I knew it from the start. I opened my heart inside, was all gone.
I adore this album. Absolutely adore it. Some may disagree, but I feel like this is the perfect synthesis of Donald's artistry, put into a cohesive, maximalist, ambitious project that's endlessly intoxicating and unpredictable. Not only do I think it's the best work of his entire career, but it's the best album I've heard this year, and I doubt you'll hear anything like it in 2024. Like, I just find it to be instantly otherworldly, yet familiar, a concoction of musical stylings that pushes the medium into a new direction. So yeah, for that alone, it's an easy 10 out of 10. But hey, that's just my perspective. If you're a Gambino fan, I mean, come on, man. What a blast to end such a masterful era of music. And hey, if you're in search of an eclectic, weird, catchy, funny, extremely impressive amalgamation of talent through genre exploration, ain't no way you're not going to enjoy this. Alright, that's all I got. Bye!